All right, let's call the meeting to order and welcome everybody tonight. Nice to see people in the gallery and welcome. Thanks very much for coming. It's good to have people here. I really, Pat's a regular, but we tell her that every time, don't we, Pat? We love to have you here. And we have some people online joining us from sunny Mexico. Councilor Blackenack, she's on vacation, but very kind of you to join us. I can think of some other places if I was in Mexico that I would rather be, so thank you for that.
You
And,
guys are important, so I can take the top.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Lutz is not feeling so well, and we appreciate him not coming tonight and sharing any germs, so thank you. I'm glad you could join us. And Ning Yang, our development officer, did I say that properly? Okay, great, is joining us as well online. And
Katie is also.
And Katie Barrett, our manager of community development, is joining us online as well. So welcome, Katie.
Thank you.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order and welcome everybody. We did that. Approval of the agenda. Is there anything to add to the agenda tonight? I will mention we do have an in-camera session tonight. And, okay, there's nothing else to add. Can I have a motion to approve the meeting? Councilor Wall, second by Councilor Sereno. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried. And people, please online, if you would need to, if I ignored you, please speak up. Just I may forget to look up there and check on you. See your hands up. Okay, let's do approval of the minutes. Council meeting February 11th. Anybody note any errors or omissions in those ones?
Just two clarifications, one on number 5C, Bardo Fair. I thought we were responding to her letter with correspondence as well. It's not noted in there. Anna Horsnell's.
Which minutes?
That would be the first set of minutes. I think it's the first set. 250211.
So are you saying that after she had sent us a letter that they were not?
We were going to respond to her, thanking her and directing her to Valley Ring.
That is correct. Katie, by any chance, did you do that? I know I did not. You and I were the two that were copied on that.
I did not know.
Okay, we will follow up on that. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor James.
And the other one was on 5E, just second paragraph, just for clarification. It's a little rough in its read. I just suggest that in the last paragraph, Councilor Jameson noted that the deficiencies highlighted in the recent auditor management letter specifically concerning bank reconciliations were being addressed. And the audit committee has requested additional resources to help resolve concerns. I would suggest you take the specifically concerning bank reconciliations. You put at the end of that, it does almost read double negative. So other than that, looks fine.
Okay, did you get
I
that?
did.
Okay. Any other errors or omissions? Okay, we'll approve them with those two noted.
Yeah.
And we'll add that to the action items to follow up with that letter.
Thank you.
Okay, public hearing minutes from February 13th. Any errors or omissions in the public hearing? There's lots of notes there for people. Council's good with that. We'll approve them as circulated. And the special council meeting of February 13th. Anybody note any errors or omissions in those? The one item. Okay, we'll approve those as circulated, and then the special council meeting February 27th. Any errors or admissions in those? Okay, we'll approve those and circulate it. Let's move on to item 4, review of the action items. So Jennifer, you.
Sure. So they were provided in the latest update of the council package. There's 2 items that have been completed since the last meeting. So we've scheduled the meeting from the community alcohol program. I believe that's what CAP is. And we've also prepared the resolution for our Factory Dale turbine. So smaller action items completed, but we'll continue to work on the list. Take any questions that council may have.
Any questions then on the action items? And we'll continue it to add tonight as we just recently did with them. Okay. All right, let's move along to our first item, new business, which is the first reading from Planning Advisory Committee. And we do have a motion there, and I'll ask our deputy mayor to speak to that as chair of the Planning Advisory Committee, and then note that Ning Lang is here for any questions, or if we need to do his presentation as well. So Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Move that the Planning Advisory Committee recommend that council give first reading to rezoning of 106 Orchard Street, PID 55237994 from R1 to R2, and that the application be forwarded to a public hearing.
Okay, so we have a motion. We have a seconder for that. Councilor Sereno. So now we'll open up for any discussion and any questions we have of our developer on that.
The only question is the surrounding properties. Are those all R1, R2?
Mr. Lang, would you like to speak to that? Was part of your report. It was the question was around the surrounding properties, a description of what's in that area.
So, hi, good evening, Council. So to respond to the surrounding residential neighborhood, it's a mixture of different dwelling types consisting of 2-unit residential and some multi-unit residential. Currently, it's a mixture of R2 and mostly R2 zoning. If that answers the question. So.
Okay. Yeah, need to know. Thank you. Okay.
Just kind of to add to that, we haven't verified like all the status of all the surrounding properties, and some of them may have development agreement registered against them, which would allow a greater density developed than the as of right development prescribed in the zoning.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's call for the motion though. Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And any contraminded? Okay, motion's carried. Thank you very much. Mr. Ling, you're free to go, or you're welcome to stay.
Sure. All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item B is our accessibility and equity plan. As you all may remember, we had the presentation from Taylor and Jordan at the committee of the whole meeting last. And tonight it's the opportunity to approve that plan. So I'll ask the chair of our accessibility committee, Councilor Clackenack, if you'd like to say a few words to that, introduce the motion.
So yes, I'll say a few quick words. I hope you can hear me. So clearly, the legislation of 2017 and 2022 has had a role in the fact that we need to do an accessibility plan and a plan for under the Anti-Disabling Racism and Hate Act. We've had an accessibility plan since 2020, which was developed by the Accessibility Committee and approved by Council. And there's a requirement that at 3 years intervals, these plans have to be reviewed to make sure they're relevant and still responsive to the needs of the community. The new Racism and Hate Act has required that we start on the process of developing equity and inclusion plan. And so the town staff, particularly Jordan Webb and Tyler Boylan, have worked very hard. There has been community feedback, which has been reflected in the report. They have talked to various experts and the province to ensure that they are working in the right direction. And then for purposes of making sure the community is aware of where we're going, this plan was presented at the community of the whole meeting in February, on February 25th. And the plan does reflect the feedback from the community. From a financial perspective, there are some costs associated with accepting this plan. However, those costs have been built into the budget. And given the support we have received and the approval of the Accessibility Committee, I recommend that we accept the accessibility plan.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a seconder, Councillor Goddard. You, any further discussion on that? Councillor Serena.
Okay, anything above treating people equally, kindly, fairly, respectfully, and with the dignity they deserve, anything above that is not required. We do not need education. We do not need a diversity officer. We do not need anything else. All we need for our DEI and our diversity is that one line. We will constantly and properly make sure that everything we do is respectful, full of dignity and respect that a human deserves to have. Anything above and beyond that, or overcomplicating it more than that, is not required. Also, I was a little perturbed that you couldn't even call your accessibility plan accessibility and DEI plan, because that's what it is. It is not an accessibility plan, it is an accessibility and a DEI plan. So already we're trying to hide our DEI plan, and that's what the optics look like. So for those reasons and all this DEI stuff, Canada has never been more divided. There has never been more hate crime, and there has never been more crime against other people ever in the history of Canada. And it all has to deal with DEI legislation. So are we going to keep moving forward, trying the same thing over and over and over, expecting different results? Or are we going to move forward with new, fresh ideas to bring the community together as a unity? So my idea is we make the policy for Berwick flag. We only put out the Canadian flag, the Nova Scotia flag, and the Berwick flag. They represent everyone that lives here already. If you want to hang another flag on your house or your property or anything like that, not matter, but we have to represent everybody. And if we miss one flag, we miss it all and we miss the point. We have to stay apolitical on this. Nobody is more special than anybody else. And every time you put up a flag, you are proving that somebody is more special than everybody else. So going forward to bring unity and to bring the community together, I suggest we create a competition for a new flag, a flag that represents Berwick, a flag that will bring us together, a flag for everyone, a flag that people can be proud of, a flag that everybody in Berwick can hang on their house. And that's all I have to say about that. So for those reasons, I will be voting no against this.
Okay, so thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. And would be anybody else interested in speaking to this or sharing their thoughts on more than just the plan, apparently, so feel free to do that. As you know, those people in the province think a little bit differently, that we do need more specific attention to this issue. And that's why they created the legislation, and have strongly encouraged municipalities to play a strong role in this, because as we know, the municipalities are the grassroots level of government. That's where we can have the most traction with the most things. We have the most action, we have the most dealings daily with the people. So it was under their direction that we did create this plan, not that we did it unwillingly by any means, because we certainly felt and do feel that we do need to move forward and take specific action and not make assumptions that we're not at that point where everybody can deal with this themselves. We do need great specific attention to it, which is why we've created the plan that we have. The plan is a very high level plan, so we will be looking for lots of input in that from council and from councilors and from the committee members and from people in the community as well, for specific ideas about how we can and what kinds of things we can do. Your flag is certainly an excellent idea. It's been discussed at this table, the previous council. And so it may certainly be one of those items that we can, that accessibility committee can action. But I do want to throw it out to anybody who may want to make some comments on that, much like Council Serena did. No? Okay, yes, Councilor Wong.
I just wanted to highlight and thank the committee and our town staff team for their work and dedication for this. It was a lot of pressure that was put on quite suddenly from the province to have something as a deliverable, even at the high level, that came fairly quickly without much warning. And not that it had not been on our minds as we look at diversity issues and accessibility issues, but it really pumped in as something that needed to be pressed at. So I know it was a lot of extra hard work by the committee members, by the staff, for putting their input into this and for getting community input. And I think it should be recognized that they did some pretty extraordinary work under some extraordinary, not usual circumstances to pull this together. So I think that should just be thanked.
Thank you very much, Council. While we're on that, there's two other pieces I would mention that our staff work very hard with provincial staff as well, who have been dedicated and directed to support us and each municipality in doing that. As well as we engaged our community in a couple opportunities to do that, particularly the survey. We got lots of very positive feedback from the survey that helped contribute to the plan as well. So I want to thank those people. Councilor James.
I worked on the original accessibility plan and that came forward, and this is an addendum as I see it to that accessibility plan. It was needed at the time. It was legislated at the time. It is something that we have to do, not sometimes you'd like to take a different direction, but we have been asked to do this and effectively told to do this. I do see that it's been valuable to the community, what has come up so far. Does it go far enough? Or does it go too far? It tries to strike a balance as I see it. It's taken a lot of good work by committee, by the staff, and I applaud them for turning it around in a short order. And I guess from my perspective, I see that something that I can support, given that we are mandated to do this. And given that it's one of the items that keeps coming forward, and I've heard from a number of citizens that have asked us to be more sensitive to items such as this. So from that standpoint, I feel that I'll be supporting this.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Davison. Anybody else, want to forget our people online? Deputy Mayor, Councilor Packanack, any comments?
No, I want to thank those people who've supported it. This has been a lot of work, and equity, in my mind, is not treating everyone equally, but giving everyone equal access to be included in the community. And I believe that this plan will move us in that direction.
One other point I might add is, the County of Kings has put a lot of energy and emphasis in this and has done some excellent work on that. And, we are part of that county committee, and we have a great opportunity to partner and share and do some additional things with them. So I want to mention one of our neighbors, has a huge amount of resources towards this, and that, we work closely with them as well. Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll call for the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
any contradicted? And do you wish your? Okay, motion has been carried. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for sharing our thoughts on this. I believe Councilor James, Councilor Walsh both said, there's lots of work to go as we go forward. This we had to do quickly, and we're gonna learn from this, and there'll be adaptations and changes and input into this as we go. So we'll have a lot more opportunities to talk about how we do this in this community. Okay, let's move on to C. So you may have, well, maybe some of the new councilors wouldn't, but over the last year or so, we have been, we've heard more about the statement of provincial interest from the province. We've heard about it in some of our planning around agriculture, certainly around the housing piece, it's come up. We've had conversation about safe water, safe drinking water around it. Flood risk is another area that are public. These are these statements of public interest. We have been asked as the municipality to provide some input into two of them in particular. So they have sent us the survey, and so what you have in front of you that we have shared with you is the presentation on housing and infrastructure. So that is there, some background and some information. Also, the survey is part of the package as well, so you can see the questions that are there. You have since been sent the actual survey, and the survey also went out to the Planning Advisory Committee earlier. The task at hand is for councilors and PAC members to have a look. And if you have any thoughts about any of those particular questions, please send them in to Krista. I believe Krista's going to take them. And then we're going to, as best we can, correlate one response from the town of Berwick on this. So it's an opportunity though for councilors to all participate in this, share your thoughts and send some information in. And our target deadline for this is, when do we need to have these things back to council?
Yeah.
Tough. So that's looming. That's March 13th is Thursday. So if we could get them back by Thursday, we would appreciate that.
Is it in my email?
Not yet, it will be.
It will be in the email. Yeah. PAC members would have.
Yes,
Yeah.
PAC did.
I've seen that.
So it does start at question 3, and that isn't an error. Just the first couple questions are just related to the municipality, so it wasn't relevant to the survey for sending out, so.
Okay. So I'm not sure exactly who's gonna pull it together, Jennifer.
So Krista will pull it together. What we'd like to though get it by the 13th, the deadline is the 23rd, is because if there's any large gaps in the feedback we get, then we might need to further dig into it. They only want one response per municipality. So although you have the link, please don't fill it out yourself. Because we do want to ensure we can capture all of the comments from our council members and the planning advisory committee members. So that's the reason for the deadline of the 13th and the full deadline of the 13th for submission. It's just so we can ensure that if there are any strong contradicting opinions, that we can find a way to resolve that before submitting.
Okay, any questions on that? So it's for information and a task for people as well that want to. Okay, let's move on to B, which is our budget direction and discussion for tonight. So there are a couple of resources there. There's the survey results that you see in the pretty colored bars that are flashing up. And then there would also is the summary of the comments that were made at the public information session as well. I'd like to spend a few minutes if people have any questions on or comments on either one of those items. And then we'll get specifically into our budget discussion. And we asked Jennifer this morning, we were chatting about how to kind of streamline this conversation a little bit. So she has a bit of an exercise or a tool between she and Lisa that kind of help us get through to some specific direction on that. So let's open it up. Any comments then from the survey?
One quick comment I will make
Yes, please.
is that it appears that there is a desire to have some reserves within the town. And the taxpayers are willing to look at funding those reserves one way or the other. And I would encourage us to possibly either look at a special tax rate or a rate that would be called future development or future opportunities for the town in a tax rate that it pulls those monies aside and sets them into a reserve so that we aren't always scrambling and scratching to say, these are things that we absolutely, that we'd like to do. The other one is certainly speaks to the need of our sewer systems and our infrastructure that needs to be improved. Potholes, of course, are always prevalent and people will complain no matter how well you fix them, but the roads and sidewalks do have to be maintained as well. But the sewer is top of everybody's mind. And we have to focus on that. The third thing that I wanted to point out is and everybody sees is the fire and police services. We have to look at those. There is certainly an opinion that we're not getting what we pay for. And particularly the police services. And maybe we should be looking at what we are paying for. And if we think we're only getting 3/4 of those services, why are we buying full contract? I'll stop there and let anybody else interject to add to.
Thank you very much. We'd like to go next, Councilor Serena.
Just with the policing, what's the alternative?
You said,
Yeah, I got
you're
the
looking
question.
for,
I'm looking for a response, guys. What's the alternative to what we have right now?
well, do you want to take a stab at that, Tom?
Well, I can. I will say that there's no alternative for next year,
Hmm.
but there may be other things through the review that the province is doing. There may be, so one thing that we haven't done here because we are waiting on the province to finish their review is you could do your own policing review that would look at the cost of the RCMP, the cost of purchasing service from a local or other municipal service, or establishing your own police force. So it would look at all of those options. You would identify what your level of service is and then get proposals from each of those or other. And then, but you need that in place before you can give notice to the province, which has to be 12 months notice to change to another service.
Okay.
So that, so it's not out of the realm of possibility, but it's not gonna impact the 25-26 budget.
Okay.
But it's definitely something that can be
Alright.
dug into more if it's a council priority.
But to be clear, what would we be doing is be looking at other alternatives. It is not the answer to say that, yes, this is what we can do to make our police force better and cheaper.
Yeah.
Right? We're only looking at what other options there may be. The answer to the question is, how do we make it better and how do we make it cheaper is this? Because we don't know. We would be just looking at other options. At the end of the day, it may not be better and it may not be cheaper, but that would be the exercise we'd need to go through to answer the question. So that's not,
we have to wait for the province.
well, that's
No.
been,
No, that's been our approach to
Okay.
date.
yes.
Yeah.
And is, we are, one of the first things we've asked the province is come to speak to us. And they are scheduled for our next police service advisory meeting to be here, providing we can get the date changed. And that'll be-
Yeah, I was already talking to Roger today and Thursday works for me, so I'm gonna send an email out there shortly. And dates being changed from Tuesday to Thursday.
Okay, it's different.
I just wanted to build on that. So if that date change works, then we would invite all of council. So it's a presentation from the province called PPSA, Provincial Policing Service Agreement 101 is the presentation. So they break down the policing agreement and how it's administered. The questions like, what do we get for this service, can be asked, and then considered as part of the go forward.
Okay, Councilman.
I think Councilor Jameson might have beat me.
No.
Are you sure? Okay.
Fine.
I just have a question on a question, and it's paying for future capital infrastructure such as roads and sewer needs, and sewer needs requires money in reserve to help pay for these projects. And then we have a graph underneath, but I wasn't sure, did I miss part of the question? I just wasn't sure I understood that right. Like, did we choose a level that we wanted, like levels that we wanted the public to support our reserves, or?
Yes.
That would be
Yes.
this.
Okay,
Yeah, they were
Predetermined.
okay, and so we just allowed the public to
yeah,
choose where they thought we should keep our reserve levels at.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, not at what we should transfer from operating into reserve annually.
Oh,
to-
okay.
Or this year to rebuild our reserves.
Oh, okay,
And just so that no one who may be watching later says, well, I said put in reserves, but I don't want my taxes to increase. We did not dig into, so although the graphs say, put $100,000 aside and you can increase my taxes to do it. That's not necessarily, everyone who said we want to put money aside didn't necessarily say
okay,
increase my taxes to do it. So I just want to make that caveat, so that, because someone could have said yes, but they could have chose a lesser amount. So just to make you think of it.
thank you, that's much more clear now, thank you.
Councilor Dickey.
And just to follow up on that point, as I recall from the budget presentation, we would probably need in excess of 200, not 100,000, but $200,000 in order to cover ourselves under the financial measures indicators. Is that correct?
For the combined reserve, that's where the big influx of cash of like 775,000 total was required up front, and then smaller contributions to the futures to get to the yellow.
But if you even that out over 5 years,
Yep.
7 years, you'd be looking
Absolutely.
at 200,000, not 100.
Yeah,
It's pretty significant.
it is, yes.
Any other comments on this? As was kind of mentioned, the survey is certainly not, questions aren't interconnected, that you can extrapolate anything from one question to another to give you a clear direction. And with 48, it's not, there's not a whole lot of good information that we can take out of that for direction, because a lot of it is contradictory. If you see that it's, and we don't know who is the who and that kind of thing. But it was a nice to get some sense of kind of what people felt about different questions and different aspects. So it's kind of for our information. It's not, and then the other one is, well, you'll see that there was a services in order of preference as well that people got to rate. And then there was the summary of the comments. Oh, sorry, a question?
Sorry, Derek and I were just teaming over which one of us would go first again.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, I like this format of the survey. I would have loved if we had more people respond, but I think this is great, and to carry forward into future years too. It's great to be able to keep information like this, and if we can figure out a way next year, you know, if we've shortened the workload because the questions are there, and to take it forward again next year, it would be really interesting to see these results with more input in future years and see how this grows and how this measures up against itself too. So thank you. Yeah.
And I just wanted to echo that almost the same thing with one other thing, and that is economic development. I see that's in midstream of services or preferences. But I'm not sure if people that completed the survey understand that we have a Valley Regional Enterprise Network that is working with us to try to do that work, some of that work, and we don't want to be photocopying what they do. We want to add on to what they do for the benefit of the town. So, yeah.
I suppose I would expect that most people do not have a really good understanding in detail of any of the services, really, to the extent, you know, costs, staff, what they do in those things.
I was gonna sort of make that comment that the short side of this survey is that a lot of it was filled out before the public information meeting. So some of the information that residents might have received at that meeting, particularly maybe around what falls under each service area. So there was limited information that we provided, and we talked about the value of how much information do we put under each question, is how much will people read. We tried to direct participants to the website where all the information was, but whether it was fully read or even understood, because it is a lot of information, that is something that has to be taken into consideration, and we can improve on that every year to try to get some of that information out. One thing I would say though, even though residents might not know that we have the Valley Wren, I think what it shows is that we do make a contribution to Valley Wren. So if it's seen as being somewhat important, then that supports the council's continuation in it. So that could be seen as that way as well for any of those.
Councilor Sri.
I'm just, since we're on this economic development thing, I'm just curious, does Valley Wren have anything in the works for Berwick? And what have they done since Eden Valley?
So I would suggest if you look at the overarching priorities of Valley Wren, that yes, every day they have something that's available for Berwick or people interested in Berwick. You can go to the website and find out information. If you're suggesting, do we see where they picked up a business and they brought it and moved it into a location downtown? Like, not sure that that's their mandate or that's how they do it. Would they have resources that people can look for various real estate opportunities or types of businesses and those kinds of things. That's more the level of the work they do. So, yeah, I'm not sure. So yes, they have resources and staff that are available there and maybe dealing with a business in Berwick about staff retention every day if they took a phone call. Like, we wouldn't know that necessarily. It's
And sorry, I just wanted to add, they did also have office hours once a month. We provided them an office space, and since that person has since left that position, but they do hope to continue that. So they were on site and in the town of Berwick for that. They've also come to do 2 lunch and learns, which were totally free and open to the community. And I will also note that if folks are calling me from Berwick or are moving into Berwick and there's questions beyond what I feel I have a knowledge to support, I certainly pass them on to Ren, and it's always a great response and a great relationship with that as well.
Jennifer, you want to comment on that?
Well, I would just note that they also focus on regional efforts, right? So they've completed a workforce development strategy. So it would look at what types of workforce we are going to need in the next 5 years and look at what programs maybe at community college, what trades, and try to work that way into educating community coming up, bringing into the area what we need. So in that way, they support economic development, not necessarily specific to Berwick, but someone working at Eden Valley or at Michelin could live in and move to Berwick. So one of the things that we have had the CEO reach out to us to present to council. And we were gonna do that in April sometime, I believe, April, May, after we got through the budget. So it'll be a really good opportunity to get some more additional information from her and ask some of those questions as well.
Also, thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
I just wanted to gush for a second about the Ren. Just that every time I've ever had a business or a stakeholder ask me questions about economic matters in Berwick, especially when the pandemic was hitting us and we were looking for resources and what we could do for small businesses specifically in town, the Ren was on it, like every single time. Like they had resources, they were quick to answer me and get back directly to the people and to the town. And now that they have sort of combined forces and sharing office space with the Chamber of Commerce and with the CBGC, they are just a powerhouse of information for the area too. I've had some soft conversations with them on looking at what we could do to create a business development strategy specifically for Berwick that could be used as a model that could be taken to other communities as well. And I think we'd be a great guinea pig for that too, especially considering all of the agricultural wealth of knowledge that's around us too, and the technology that lies in that. So when it comes to the Ren, I will say, when I first started, I was quite critical of where we were spending our money and how we were seeing that directly. And I have done a complete reverse on that. They're worth their weight in what they do. And they're definitely worth the value, and they have that personableness in really making those community connections too. So it's something that's hard for us to measure because it happens outside of the folks that normally sit around this table. But yeah, they are a great partner in what we're doing.
Okay, let's continue on. So there was kind of the services and order preference, and then there was some summary of the comments from the survey. You want to make any comments on those?
More transparency. Well, they want to reduce our pay by 50%.
Again, it's hard to know if it's a they, a him, or her. We have no idea how many people say these things, right? So. Okay, and then the last page there is the feedback from our public information session. So if you remember, we spent a great deal of time providing information on how the budget works, and then we we sat in some small tables and people got to move around and have some discussions about various departments and aspects of the budget. Made some comments on the flip chart paper there. Comments to staff. A lot of questions. Just Councilor Jameson.
Yes, just a question on how we communicate where our taxpayer dollars go. Do we still provide a pie chart or a description of a house or something like that that says this is where your tax dollars are going? We are still doing that.
Yeah, those are in our presentations. But if it might be more helpful, we could export that from our presentation and maybe put it on like our property tax page on the website or on the budget page.
And include the one where it breaks it out more than just by department, but by service. So what we did at the information session after Councillor Walsh kind of identified that.
I'm so sorry. I'm
No,
sick.
but it really helped paint a picture that there's a lot that's included in certain departments like general government that we don't have any control over, but it makes it appear to the public that we spend more than we actually do. Particularly in the office here, but it makes it look a lot more inflated than it is because we're paying for education.
And just to follow up on that, seeing how you brought up education. Is there a way for us, if we fix that in our budget, we don't know that it's going to be the same every year. But if we do fix that in our budget as a overhead component, which it is. We're committed to that, just like we're committed for a year to the police services, committed to, can we look at a special tax rate
Oh.
just to cover that?
So I would like to do, if I may, I was just trying to look through the MGA at the area rate stipulations because they do sort of identify what an area rate can and cannot be. I don't believe you can make it a special rate. You would, well, yes, you could put it out there, but you would likely reduce your, I think here before you showed it as a separate line item on your tax bill. But it still gets applied as an overall tax rate to your residents. If that makes sense. You can sort them out, but at the end of the day, the tax rate bottom line is the same. You're just showing individually how much of your overall taxes, how many cents get paid directly to education.
I'll just go by an example that I know from two other counties that I've lived in that have one had a protective services tax rate, the other had a fire tax rate.
So we can do those. We can put there's a fire area rate and a fire hydrant rate. We do not need a hydrant rate because we don't have a water utility. But we can, so everyone around us outside of the town of Berwick pays a fire area rate that goes to the County of Kings. And that's collected to support the Berwick Fire Department through an operating grant, and then they provide funding to the commission to support capital projects, all under the Berwick and District Fire Department. You could put an area rate inside the town of Berwick to generate the amount that the town of Berwick pays for that service as well. That one is clear in the MGA that you can do that. The education, I'm not sure if you can specifically do that or not, but there is, I would require some additional research to know exactly what you can and cannot do a policy or bylaw to collect.
Thank you.
Whether you do it as a separate rate or just show it as a separate thing, like through a pie chart or whatever, you can help people understand where the dollars go to. I know at one time, we really wanted to pull out the difference in the education rate, so we called it, so we had your municipal taxes in this pie, and then we had your provincial education tax here. So when people saw that, as much as their bill was the combined one, but they saw that number, we tried to make it jump out that this is nothing to do with the town. This is about the province and your education. the end of the day, it's lumped into the same tax bill and you pay it, but it just gives that, hopefully it was to give people appreciation that was, you know, what you're suggesting, what we're trying to do is show people that this is where their money's going. And, yeah, so, yeah, we can certainly do more of that. I think that was one of the values of this session, and anything more we can do to provide the public more information and understanding on how dollars get generated and where they go to, and where we have discretion over things and where we don't, is very valuable. So the more we do that, the better. I think Councillor or Deputy Mayor Roots next, and Councillor Sereno.
I just wanted to say if you guys can hear me. I haven't unmuted myself. Okay, great. I thought at least it was well done that we tried to show that to the public. The people that showed up that night was very understanding, and that moved around, and that helped at the tables that we had when we had our sessions. So pat on the back. If we keep going forward with that every year, I thought it was very helpful and very transparent.
Thank you. And Councillor Sereno.
I'm just curious as to how many school-age children we have living in Berwick, and what does that work out per child? What we pay?
So Lisa may have that at her fingertips. I see she's moving the pad there around a bit, so she might be able to find that number for us.
Under pressure, it never schools.
Well, I don't have pressure. It was just a curiosity popped in my head. I'm sorry.
No. Make it bigger so I can read it. So in Berwick, we have 167 children from Berwick that attend Berwick and District.
So we have 167. And we pay how much? For education? Or the high school?
We also pay for West Kings.
Yep, so how many people do you have in West Kings?
So school age kids, we have total of 257.
That's total, everybody?
Yes,
High school and,
yes.
okay, and how much do we pay each year on education?
And you're gonna ask me that and I'm gonna go with that. You're opening your.
I am opening my
tabs, so you are
calculator,
ready.
I'm ready to go.
All right, so it is 687, 440.
$687,
$1,000.
$1,000?
Yes, 440.
40. Divided by,
2,675
Ooh,
dollars.
Derek.
geez.
There's still two numbers in there, correct?
So the way that Kings County works is there's an area it's not an area rate. It's a rate, an education rate, and I believe is it 48 cents or 43 cents? So it's times by what is called our uniform assessment. So every year we get a new updated uniform assessment that is driven by our ability to pay and where we generate taxable assessment.
Mhm.
So that number times so our number, County of Kings number, Town of Wolfville number, and Town of Kentville number gets times by your uniform assessment, and then that pot of money further gets broken down based on the number of school age kids you have.
Okay.
The tax rate is 0.3048.
Oh, well, I was not close. I got 4.8 right.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, so in all other areas, it would just be your uniform assessment times the rate.
Mhm.
In Kings County, we have a specific one that further divides it by the number of school age kids. So the less school age kids we have, the less we would pay, the more we have, the more. we would pay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Just pure curiosity, but it was just an exercise in curiosity. Sorry.
And we don't control that number.
Right.
No,
That's assigned and that's
Mhm, yeah.
the bill to be paid.
100%, I get it.
Okay, any other comments on any of these, Council?
Just to say that, although I was very, very under the weather and couldn't make, the session, I heard lots of positive feedback about this year's session, which is huge.
Thank you.
So to hear people speaking positively about a budget session, so great work. Yeah, great work, everybody.
It was the stunt.
The snack. That always helps. We know that. Food is the best thing you can bring. Yeah. Okay, so if there's no more comments on this, yes.
Sorry, I
think
did
it's-
just have a comment.
Okay.
So we do hear quite regularly that administration has doubled, or administration is out of control. So I went back to 2001 and pulled our FTEs for administration, which would be your CAO, your finance, that support, and your recreation.
So
So-
this building.
This building. So in 2001, there were 7 employees. 2006, there were 8. And it kind of fluctuated in 2018, but at present level, we have 9.85. So over the span of 20 years, it's really only been an increase of 1.85 full-time equivalents. So I felt like that was important information to share. That it hasn't doubled, it hasn't done this. And really, that's actually quite lean when you look at the growth that the town has experienced, the addition of area, all of the capital projects that we've undertaken here, which require all of those additional resources. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that for the public and for reference for the council.
Well done.
Thank you.
And don't lose sight of that, because I think for me, one of the learnings from our public information section, we focused on the budget stuff, but there are other things related to the budget that's important to share, like the number of staff
Yeah.
over the years, and so there's some other things that would be important stats. And we talked a lot about the town budget, but when you think about their BEC budget, it's just about the exact same size as the town. So staff have double the amount of budget work, because there's 2 of those budgets are running. Then when you think that they're also involved in area and the solar garden and how many invoices, receipts and numbers you're dealing with on that, plus the fact that we have Valley Waste and King's Transit, all the other IMSAs, there's a lot of budget oversight that we have as counselors at committee meetings, but also staff dealing with numbers every single day. So it's more than $6 million in the town budget. It's triple or beyond that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's another area I think that's going to be important.
yeah, about 13,
13
14.
point between BEC and,
In operating only.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
well, an area is, yes, six or 7, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there's lots of numbers to be doing with everything. Okay, if we're now ready, finish some of the comment stuff, we have what we call it, an exercise or an opportunity or a tool, yeah. We have a tool to use on how we can try to help provide some direction. So what we want to do now is go through, if you remember, we've done version 2. We have had staff back to us providing some new numbers and some updates. Council did the exercise where we went and kind of looked through the budget ourselves, asked staff to say, what would happen if we change this, cut this number, or change this service? What could we do? So we have that list. And then, of course, there's the information that we've heard from the survey that we have an opportunity to input in this. So some of these we had specific items with a specific number for that we could say, if we have to add this, like, for example, if we want to add a bylaw officer, it's going to cost this. Or if we want to get rid of the brush clearing, we're going to save this. Like, we have some numbers for that. So what we can do now, where we last finished the version 2, is we were at a deficit of 146. Are we using that number tonight? So we can start there, knowing that's after the fine tuning that we did. And then we have that list of items, and we now can add, subtract, do what we can to kind of get us to a point. So I think I'm going to stop and let Jennifer or Lisa take over with how we're going to deal with each one of these.
Oh, I thought you were gonna run us through,
Each one of them.
well, I
so,
can, so
yeah.
what's showing here on the screen is that we currently have a deficit of 146,547, and it would require 6 cents on the tax rate to balance the budget. To your right, there are a number of items that we had looked at, and I'll scroll back out so you can see them more clearly in a minute here. Well, actually, they're on the other side as well. So you can pick or choose whether you want to add or subtract it. So if it's in a brackets, it's going to increase your deficit. If it's in non-brackets, I know it sounds confusing, it's actually going to reduce your deficit. So these are suggested numbers that staff provided feedback on in the last meeting. And it's also some information like the $75,000 to go to operating reserve, which would keep us in the yellow for the FCI. So it doesn't have to be 75, it could be a different number. But as you go through and discuss the merits of these and whether you want to include them or not, we can put them in and it will readjust what the cents are required to balance the budget. And 1 cent is $24,190.
So for example, we'll show you, if we want to add the seasonal parks coordinator, we had a number of $24,000. So when we stick that in the column, we and added that, our deficit adds 24, but the tax that we require now is 7.5%.
Just to clarify, that makes the parks coordinator position a permanent position. We still have in the budget a seasonal position for a casual employee is status quo. So the additional 24,000 would make it permanent.
Year round?
From April 1st to December 31st. So permanent seasonal.
So we can begin if we want to add everything and then see if we're in a happy place. And if not, then we'll begin to scratch those things that that get us into a better spot. So let's plug them in there. So if we were to add the bylaw officer,
I was trying to move Lisa's.
Oh,
name there.
sorry, here, I'll move off screen.
we're now at 8.29. We're to add the operating.
I'll put the lower or higher number. I'll put midway in for now. For that one.
So D-transfer is a new number or a new item that we hadn't talked about, but it's new information that we have. And what we're talking about there is just making our D-transfer tax consistent with the other municipalities in the area at 1.5%. We're at 1. Yes, please.
So, I ran kind of our historical from 2018 to see what revenue we could have potentially had. If we would have had that additional 0.5%, because you could always say that's earmarked to go into a reserve. And the total would have been 434,000 from 2018, just adding that extra 0.5% onto the deed transfer tax to the end of fiscal year 2024.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, so the reason we brought this up is because in the past, Kentville and the County of Kings did not have deed transfer tax, or deed transfer fee, whatever. It's a touchy subject on whether you call it a tax or not, but they did not have a rate that they charged. Kentville has now adopted one or put one in place, and theirs is 1.5. Wolfville has always had one, and theirs is 1.5. And the County of Kings is considering one, and I believe the recommendation on the table is 1.5. So this would be still keeping us on an even playing field with our neighbors. So whether council considers the reduction of 0.5 a selling feature or not, that would be council to consider. But currently, I believe the County of Kings and maybe one other are the only municipalities in Nova Scotia that do not have a deed transfer tax. So all but one have, but they range from 1 to 1.5%. So we just put that out there since it is an option and it would be in line with our neighbors.
So all of these are kind of options. So we can now decide to make some decisions about adding, which I don't, or adding others, which only takes it higher, or subtracting some of these as we see them to get us into a lower additional tax rate. So let's open it up and have some conversation about what some things that we think we would like to do. Councillor Walsh.
So, I guess I'm gonna start my comment with the difference that about 8.5 years makes, in that, when I first burst onto the council scene, one of my major gripes was the deed transfer tax. And looking at ways to reduce that, knowing that we are now in good company, that other municipalities around us have this deed transfer tax, that we are now very much in the majority of towns that have this, and knowing that we need the income, it's become a reality for anybody looking to live in just about any municipality, let alone in a town with better services. So I think it would be very appropriate to raise the deed transfer tax to the regular levels that we're seeing around us at the 1.5%.
So let's try to do this in a bit of an organized fashion. So let's have some conversation on these one at a time. So other thoughts about deed transfer taxes? We started there. Now, students.
The motivation for Kings County, as I understand it, for the deed transfer tax is so that they can put up a fairly significant sports facility within the region. Whether it gets approved or not is a question because it's quite significant. More than $1 million and many, many millions of dollars. It will, to some extent, put other sports facilities, and I'll just go by the county of Colchester that had put up a new sports facility that went in the red, one over in Pictou County that went in the red over the past number of years. And then it put the other facilities that existed, because they didn't close them down, in the red as well. We have no say in what Kings County does, but they do have a competitive advantage with real estate transactions because of their lack of deed transfer tax. I'll just say that I do know that from years, and I tracked all of them for a number of years, right across the province. And I'm trying to think of the other county that doesn't have it, and something tells me it's down in the Guysborough County, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't remember. I will just comment that when Kenville implemented theirs, they did say it was specifically to put it away for capital projects. So it wasn't to just add to balance their budget. And I think Lisa already said it, but staff is not recommending that this, like, I think if you decide to do this, my recommendation is that this difference is something that you put into reserve. It's not used to balance the budget today. It's used to help pay for future infrastructure.
Yeah.
So that it's a purpose behind it, not just status quo.
And I guess my thoughts on it, if we are going to raise it, we should be looking at that being our purpose for the full deed transfer tax, not just a portion of the deed transfer tax, because like I said before, that's 1/3 of it. The other would make that $150,000 of reserve. We need over 200 for the next 6 years.
And whether council decides to do that this year or gives it as direction to chip away at that every year, so rely on your deed transfer tax less and less. And that's actually something that we discussed with the area dividend, is that we shouldn't be relying on the area dividend to balance the budget. Any dividend we receive should be used to help offset capital projects in the future. So this could be something that council, again, you could decide that tonight for all of 25, 26, but it could be more of a direction for next year's budget to continue to chip away at it. Because it is harder once it's already in place to claw it back, but that's something that we could take as direction as well.
Any other comments on the fee transfer tax? Anybody? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I was gonna say 1.25. I'm the half guy now, where we were going 1.5. I was thinking increasing it up to just 1.25, so that we're still lower, but we realize that we have to increase it.
Okay, there's a thought to put on the table. So just, I want to make a point around the direction that we're just talking about. So if we said that we were going to put the transfer tax, we're going to begin with the number now that we have in there at 50. And we were going to put the area dividend that we're talking about now, which is at 24.9, that would go to our operating reserve. Then does that come pretty close to the 75 that we're talking? So we could go up there and we delete that 75, and then what does that do to our new tax number? 396, and we have put $75,000 in.
But we have a deficit.
No, you've now, so sorry, I just undo it. This
So
is
that would-
putting it,
That's gonna put it in, right?
that
Okay.
is covering
my math
it,
is
yeah,
bad.
no,
All right.
I was thinking you were on the right track, I was like, wait a second, that doesn't make
That was
sense.
the least,
Yeah,
yeah.
so, yes, but that, you could say that those are all combined, but it's showing here, you still need 7 cents.
So if we were doing that this year, we could not put the area dividend and the detransfer tax, those two numbers, into an operating reserve. Because we got that 75 there, we need that other 75 to balance.
You could, you just have to put 7
If we
cents.
leave it, yeah, without changing the number,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Okay.
remember, there's other items to discuss.
Right, okay, that was my point on the detransfer tax, but since I screwed it up so bad, I'm sorry I made it. And now let's move on to another point. Who wants it? Let's start at the top, Parks Coordinator. Do we have an appetite to add that? I mean, that would save 1 cent if we wanted to delete that one. Councilor Goddard.
That could increase our reserves to 100. Or 99.
No, at this point, anything that's up here, when we reduce it, it's just changing the rate you need to or the cents you need to balance the budget. If we remove it, it doesn't give you more money to put into reserves,
Nice.
just to clarify that,
So that's just to make it permanent.
yes.
Looking at the budget, I'm thinking we can't afford one right now. Like, how can we go to the town and say, yeah, we're gonna raise your taxes, but we're hiring a new person because we don't have any money?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, for me, just for that reason, Parks Coordinator and Bylaw Officer are out. I'm sorry, but that's the way I'm looking at it. How can we tell the town we're out of money?
And with one of those, like the park coordinator is extending it, so we're not getting rid of that position, but that is from September to December. Am I correct on saying it? It's the other 3 months. That's what we're paying them for the parks coordinator.
I think it's a little more than 3 more months, because right now they don't start until, so as the budget stands, it's only 16 weeks. So I believe they start May. So the first season of mowing, we don't have anyone. And then they would start at the end of April, beginning of May, I believe, and then stay until Labor Day weekend.
And is there additional cost to go to permanency?
There would be.
So it's not all in additional hours of work.
That's right, there'd be benefits. associated with it.
So you're saying the area dividend can go to reserves?
So we are saying that what we would do in future budgets, I guess, is that we we would use that extra money not to balance the budget, but to
That's what I'm
put
saying,
to,
but
put
so
to reserves.
it can go into reserves.
Right, we can
So
put
with
in,
that, with the other 75, we're still gonna end up with close to 100.
no, that's the mistake I made. We need the 24 to balance the budget this year.
Yes, but if you take away the 24 and the 30.
Oh, yeah, okay, well, that'll change the numbers there. We
Yes.
could, yes, if we
So-
kept the same tax rate, but took away those expenses, we
Yeah,
could add more to the reserves, yes.
yes.
You want me to remove them just to
Yes.
see what it looks like?
Yes,
Joanna has her hand raised.
okay, Counselor Clackatt,
So-
please.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I mean, I agree with Counselor Sereno, particularly around the Parks Coordinator. However, we need to recognize when we do that, we will likely lose the skill that the current person who's been doing the position has, because they can't survive on a part-time job like that. They were doing it the first while they worked for the town, they did it as a student. And, you know, last year was the first year they weren't a student and they got extended. So might come back this year and work the 16 weeks for us, and he's wonderful. And so the only thing you're going to lose in the long run is perhaps a skill set. But you'll still get the work that's been traditionally done by the Parks Coordinator done in the, you know, so I can agree with removing that. I also got the sense from the feedback, that though people feel that a bylaw officer is valuable and a part-time bylaw officer is likely something we could use, and I recognize the stress and the additional workload that not having a bylaw officer puts on the town administration staff. Sort of the sense I got was that would be one that we could consider. I don't really want to, but take away. And so, yeah, supporting sort of having removed them for now, just to see where we're at and what that does. Other than that, again, I understand the idea of getting rid of the brush pickup. It's one of those things I love that the town does for us. So I just, you know, but that's a personal.
I do want to clarify that number though. That is the bin and.
Oh, that's just the bin. Okay, I mean, I like having the bin as well, but the pickup is even more important. Yeah, okay. So
No,
that does
we
not
don't
get rid of the pickup.
If we don't have the bin, we can't do the pickup.
Oh,
So this gets rid of it completely, but
gets rid
the
of it.
pickup is related to already paid for staff, so there's no savings to the budget. It's more of a shifting of duties. So I do think this would be really hard to do.
Yeah.
We can try to manage the number of months we have the bin, but talking, and if Aaron wants to say anything, people will probably still dump compost leaves and brush at Public Works, so,
Or Public Works.
yeah, so I'm not sure if this is a practical one.
Without a bylaw officer, it might be difficult. Not
Yeah, it
ever.
would be a bad move, yeah.
And then if we pull it from the budget, but we still have to do it because the culture is there to put the stuff at the roadside. Now we're drawing more on our budget.
Yeah, so thank you. I agree. I mean, it benefits the town in so many ways. I believe that it's there. And I know for many people, it makes it possible not to, you know, like makes it possible to clean their yards and keep the streets looking clean and tidy.
Counselor James.
Other communities, Lunenburg County for one, Colchester County was another one. Victor County was another one. Had brush pickup as part of their waste management program.
We do here as well.
We do here as well, but we don't take advantage of it.
No.
We have brush pickup, so wait. We're paying for brush pickup, but we're not using brush pickup and we're paying for it again with a giveaway.
So just to clarify, so
Clarify that.
So I believe it's more leaves than it is brush that Valley Waste will pick up, but they only do that. Like a certain number of bags, and I can't remember if they do it every time.
Every time, and
You can put 2 bags out, so. And some other municipalities have their own compost site, so members of the public can just go drop it off and it's not extra work on staff. Traditionally here, town staff have offered to pick up brush and leaves from curbside. It is not organized in any effective or efficient manner. So it does take a lot of resources to provide, but it has been something that has been done forever. And we've tried to not promote it as a curbside pickup, but more of a drop it off at town hall or public works. And we're trying to move in that direction. But yes, we do currently, if there's, brush on the side of the road, someone will call or they do the rounds in the morning and they'll pick it up. But Valley Waste does have something built in to also provide that service to a certain extent. So you pay
Just
for it.
leaves.
Yes.
I've
No,
taken,
actually, depends on how you manage things. You can put, if you cut your brush up, you can put it in your green bin. You just can't overfill your green bin. So through the season, as I'm doing pruning and stuff, my brush goes in my green bin and it gets taken away by Valley Waste. My leaves at certain times when I just have a certain, like, you know, through, like even in the fall, some of my leaves I will put in the green bin and Valley Waste takes them. So it's not that they don't do it, it's that there's a lot stricter controls on what you can do. So the 2 bags and the, and they don't tend to pick bags if we put them out Berwick because they know we're getting them picked up.
Thank you.
agreed, but I'm one of the few that has the liners in there, so I know what you could put in, and I understand that. But like, I'm talking the big branches, we always set roadside, they don't just pick them up. I know if you break your branches up, I've done a few. I'm not saying that, but I've also used to go in when I lived outside Tenneberg with my trailer, but you couldn't leave the bags. You had to let you then take all the leaves out and dump them in a pile. So.
Yeah.
So I'll give you the historical perspective, because before we had Valley Waste, and we did our own garbage, we did pick up leaves and branches and things on the side of the road. In fact, at one time you could burn them on the side of the road. You just would burn on the side and just started a, yeah. So that was one of them. When Valley Waste did come, and they did have a much restricted service, I think limbs and things are 2x4 bundles you can bundle, and you can do.
Yeah.
The town continued to provide the pickup. And we have traditionally and historically done the pickup to the point where I think we may have even tried to stop it one year, but people just put it out there. We tried to put timeframes on it so we could better control it. People put it out there. They put it out there year round and they expect it to disappear. But then we prided ourselves on that service being available because people loved it. At one time, you could borrow the town truck and park it in your backyard and throw the stuff in it over the weekend, and then they would come
Not anymore.
and they would
Bring
take
it
the
back?
truck away.
Yep.
Yeah, well, they stopped bringing the truck. You see,
Insurance might not like
you
that.
can't do that anymore, but that was the level of service that we would have had here for people, residents to use and have their
Probably didn't have
limbs
over
and.
3,000 people there, though, either.
What's that? No, we don't, it's a small number of people, it's a service, but, so it is something that has been here a long time, and it is difficult to manage. It'll be very difficult when it's gone. There'll be a lot of phone calls, there'll be a lot of stuff out there on the road anyway, and trying to get people to drag it back in. It's, not that we can't find a way to better control it. And even if we had a spot that we could not have a bin, that we could dump it, and then our own guys move it when the time came, because that stuff appears down there, like we all know, whether there's a bin there or not. So why have a bin if we got a place that they could dump it and then we truck it away or whatever later? But that's something that we could look at managing if we do not want to get rid of our brush pickup service. Councilor Sereno.
Could we not just designate an area in town as like a town compost area?
No, that's,
So we have talked about that, but that it requires environmental permits, so we're not ready to do that
Okay,
today.
okay.
I think that that's something that could be possibly looked at for the future,
Yeah.
but it's not gonna, again, have the
Okay.
impact this year.
Yeah, I'm not looking for like something to just dump off, like something like, we put it in.
Yeah.
We create the compost and then people in town will just come and get it.
Right. And we would assess the, yeah,
know it's
we
not
would,
that-
we
I
would
know.
assess the operational impact that would have, cause you probably need someone like a parks coordinator to manage that.
Probably.
So those are the types of things that through your strategic planning,
Mhm.
if that's something you want staff to focus on, we could look at those service
Okay.
options. I will just look at Aaron and say that, yeah, not gonna make a huge difference to this budget, but we could maybe reduce that to 6. And try to manage the amount of months or time we have the bin, but again, it's still not gonna be huge savings to the budget.
We could try, I think on the website, we advertise it for 2 weeks. It's a 2-week spring pickup and a 2-week fall pickup. And I think it's more like a 6 to 8 week. It's 2 to 4 public works employees, 3 hours, 4 to 5 days a week for up to 6 weeks. Right, it's not very, the residents don't necessarily abide by the time frame on the website. And I think my recollection last fall is we had to get a 3rd bin because people kept putting stuff out. So just to deal with stuff the residents continued to put out, we had to incur additional costs. Again, difficult to enforce.
Could we put a sign at the compost bin, drop off open, drop off? We do,
We
really?
can, we've even
We have a
tried,
no dumping.
Oh my gosh.
you know, we've put Jersey barriers to physically close
Yeah.
access. And, you know, folks sometimes will just parallel park by the Jersey barriers and carry it.
It's as the mayor explained, it's a very long history service and it can't just change overnight. So
Yeah.
we are trying
Yeah.
ways to
I mean,
improve the efficiency of it,
makes all sense.
but it's gonna take a lot of.
we maybe do need to begin to manage it better though, and if people are outside the timeframes, then perhaps we should tell them, we're gonna take it this time, but you're outside the timeframe. If you throw another bag out there next week,
You're not there.
we're not coming, or if we come around, we're throwing it back on your lawn, like we're not taking it, like it's, yeah. Anyway.
Well, we've all,
Direct all complaints. to-
Counselor Jameson and then Deputy Mayor.
I only brought up that Valley Waste because I knew it generated good discussion.
Thanks.
But I do some, from what I've heard from the citizens, it is a valuable service. It's almost goodwill at this point.
Yeah.
And how we can manage it better is, look at that, but, we have to. Outside those timeframes, we could be saying, we do have the alternative of Valley Waste.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
But I don't support taking it out. Or as it is there in.
Oh, that's out. So if I remove it, it will remain in.
In,
Yeah.
yes.
So would you like me?
So we'll let Deputy
Yeah,
Mayor.
yeah,
Roots have
remove it
last comment
and see
on
what
that,
we are.
and-
Uh,
So,
uh,
Deputy
uh,
Roots, your last
yes,
comment on
I'm
this?
just gonna say, we've seen good things with the bin being there that people do, so we do save the time staff. I know myself, I have a truck and that, and I see people there all the time that I recognize from the town of Berg that take it up, that the town doesn't have to do it, just when the bin is there at the proper time of the year and that. And it's good to see whether it's their cars full of those bags or whatever, but everybody is following the rules, putting them in the proper disposable bags and that, and it's a good thing to see. Again, it's one that I would like not to come off the list, and maybe we could fine tune the times, I understand that. But I think the one exception I remember while I've been in council is those freak storms, then the branches come down, and yes, just by nature, the branches go roadside because no one expected that storm. And it took a bunch of branches down, and again, I think we went around and picked them up.
Okay, so general consensus at this point, let's make it go away. All right, there we go. So now we're at, 5.16 on the tax rate.
It's still in the budget, just to clarify, that's what
Yeah,
me removing it meant.
Yeah. Okay, I think this is good.
Johanna.
Yeah, so can you please explain the Berwick Fitness Center membership CPI? Is having it there now mean that we increase the membership fee by the CPI? Is that
Correct,
what
so
you're,
it's-
that, okay, that, to leave it, yeah, I just wanted to be sure that that was right. That I have no trouble with that.
Okay,
You know, just
Counselor Davison.
Just to supplement that, is that just for the fitness center? Do we not have other services that we provide that we could add CPI? That we've got 3 to 5% somewheres on our cost increases.
Yeah.
Every time we look at it, it's 3, 5, 7%, 2% maybe here.
So we do, Katie did gathered information last year and I believe, oh, Katie has her hand up. Why don't I let her answer that?
Hi,
Katie,
sorry.
please.
So outside of the fitness center, it would mainly be only pickleball and facility rentals, and we did run the numbers on that, and it was less than $700 by increasing CPI on those.
But across the board, it would add to 2,600, it would add, make that 33.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
But just
Yeah,
if we're, because we pulled out one, that was 26, we
Yeah.
just didn't add them all together, which would give us 33. And I just,
we can do that. I think that's a rounding error when we,
yeah,
need to balance that 16
yes,
at the end.
exactly, yeah, well,
But I
yeah.
can include it if you want.
Well, for me, at this point, if we're at 5.16, I hope we're gonna get it to 5, and
Yeah.
we'll leave it with you guys to figure
Yeah.
out where you, yeah,
Absolutely.
okay. Alrighty, some other comments? Counselor Serena?
Yeah, I'm good with leaving it just the way it is, right here, right now. For me, that looks acceptable. I'd like to get it at 5 or below, myself personally. That I could feel comfortable with. But other than that. Yeah, it is what it is, like, we still gotta pay our bills. We still gotta keep the town running, we still gotta keep the town healthy. I don't want my tax bill going up, I really don't, but I do love this town, and I want it to stay a town, so. I'm willing to pay the extra 5 cents. Yeah, make it happen.
So what we're gonna do tonight, if we stop at this point, we create then version 3, staff take it, and then we'll have. We're gonna make a motion on it tonight, and we'll do that when they come back with the final numbers at a special council meeting at the end of March. And then that's when we'll set the budget and we'll set the rate at that point. So it gives us that time to mull over this if we want to, or if something else comes up. That we can add into this at that point before we finally set the budget. I think that's our plan, so. Something else.
I do just want to add one thing. So I really liked what you said about you'd like it to be. So if we could hear that, like, so we've got it to 5. If we could hear what you kind of want it to be, but you're comfortable with, there might be, some other things that we can pick away at. I just would like that direction
Sure.
as we prepare it. And how much you want to leave the reserve,
Yeah.
the transfer, like,
Okay.
you want it to be 75 or you're comfortable with it at 50, like, just,
I would
we
love,
can play with those things to bring that version 3.
yeah, I would love to keep it, myself personally, I'd like to keep it at 75.
75, 5, but 4 preferably.
4 preferably, but I would be comfortable with 5.
And so
That's just me. I would like to get a motion to,
We're not gonna take a motion.
Okay,
We're just
right.
gonna
we'll
give
just
them
go
some-
around the room.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
if that's.
okay.
Okay.
And that is great. I just wanna, I'm gonna throw a reminder in right now. In the last 2 years, we have decreased the tax rate by 3 cents. So just, we dropped it 2
Yeah.
cents, 1 cent the other year. So to be where we were 3 years ago or 2 years ago, we are lower by 3 cents. You know, and we did that for lots of really good reasons because the amount of assessment went up a whole lot too, but those, just I'll leave that with you. So I believe, who had their hand up? Councillor Lund.
I guess to jump around the table, as I know, Councillor Goddard was one who wanted to reduce it, so if we could hear from him maybe first, I think this is where we're gonna end, and have to increase it, but I know he was one, and I just want to hear his opinion as well, because I would have liked to cut it as well, but same with the budget is, I just don't see how it can, but I'd just like to hear from him if we could, at least.
Well, I hope we can hear from everybody tonight, but let's go directly to Councillor Goddard and put him right on the spot.
Yeah. I did initially say I was looking for a penny off. Since the public hearing, I'd be happy at 5 cents. The consensus of even though it's only 48 people, they're the ones who came up. So you gotta listen to them. And that seems to be, if this money's going for infrastructure and reserves, they're happy with that.
Thanks, Councillor Goddard. Next, I'd like to try to get around to everybody for a final comment on this.
Do you want to speak to me? So
Yes.
I'm wanting you to speak, so,
Yes.
I mean, I think we should stick right around 5. I'm happy with where we're at. In my ideal world, we would be putting 100,000 into reserve, but recognizing all of the pressures, I'm happy. I guess the only question is, if we find some surprise money over the year, it would be really nice if we are very careful with that and put it into reserves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every penny.
Yeah. I thought if you were gonna say if we find some surprise money, let's drop it a cent. But just to be clear, we can't do that. Like, once we make the decision at the end of the month at our last meeting that this is the rate, we can't
No.
drop the cent. We can put more money elsewhere, but we just can't drop that, so.
So just to build on that though,
Mm.
we are still waiting on the RCMP number, though I would. If I had to guess, it's not gonna be lower than what we projected, but I guess the question of. Where you would rather, if between now and version 3, there's always gonna be like a few changes that are made based on known information. If there is a savings, do you want that to go into? So that's why I'm asking you you're saying happy at 5, do you want that to go into increasing the reserve or getting it down to 4? Like, I think that's kind of what I'm most, interested in.
Thank you. That's a good way to consider that question for the next 2 weeks. So if there is some wiggle room there.
Or a combination of both.
Yeah,
Clearly,
okay.
for me, just because anything, like, if we find extra money and it makes it really possible to get it to 5 without cutting the 7, and there's still some left over, anything that extra goes into reserve. I think we have played with fire by using up that reserve fund, and it really worries me. So I think we need to rebuild that.
So just to be clear, we are on paper in front of us, we're at 5.16, but our target is 5 even. Right?
Yes.
We're going for 5 even right now. Yeah, okay. Councillor James.
I guess I just want to reserve my comments on the reserves. Because I do not see that the reserves are being adequately funded, and I do not see any information available at this point that says that the IMSAs that we have some responsibility for have adequate reserves. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
So this is a bare minimum reserve that we can be looking at, and it does have to be put out there not only for that, but for our capital and for our commitments to our IMSAs as well, our intermunicipal service agreements. The only one that I'm aware of is Valley Waste does have some reserves. They're probably being chewed up this year because of different capital projects that they are finally going to use those reserves, which they were put there for. But I don't think that anyone else as, you can argue that there may be one that does, but, I don't think any of the others have.
Yeah, what I would say is that we do give a capital contribution to King's Transit, but based on what they're looking to spend to replace the buses, that is enough after this first round of purchases, and then it comes down to supporting debt. So it doesn't come back to ask the municipalities for any additional at this time,
Right.
but it doesn't mean that they won't ask for additional in the future.
Right.
But that's the way that the current plan works, is it depletes all of the reserves that we've contributed to Valley Waste. So we give 4,000 every year that they put into a reserve. So that will go towards the replacement of the buses. When the second round of buses is replaced, they will be relying strictly on debt, which we guarantee. But that doesn't mean that there couldn't be an option, or they couldn't come and say, we want to get you to put more into reserve.
But typically, when you guarantee, even when you guarantee someone else's debt, you set aside some reserves in order to cover that if that guarantee is ever called on in the private sector.
Yeah, in preference, yeah.
I know
Yeah,
we're
it is
under,
a risk though for municipalities, because we guarantee a lot of IMSA intermunicipal service agreement organizations. And when you look at our financial statements, we are guaranteeing more than we can cover.
right, yeah.
They all pulled the plug, we couldn't control.
And that's a fear that the province could at some point say, even your guarantees outside of your organization can't be more than 15%. And right now ours are.
So, I guess although everybody would like to see it at the 5 cents, I still feel that there should be additional reserves considered. So I just leave that on the table that,
Do you have a number?
yeah, 2 cents. 2 cents, yeah,
So 7.
yeah.
Okay. And 125.
Unless I hear differently about all the adequacy of those reserves for these other organizations, so.
No, you're not gonna hear that.
I'm
Well, I
not,
can tell you I'm on the investment committee for Valley Waste. And we had a meeting Monday morning, and their investments are at 3 million. And they're looking now at where they might make some changes and what they may need to pull out of that for their things. So they're gonna dip into that considerably. But they're feeling that they're still okay. So it's, if a huge project after that or something goes down, they'll be.
well, I'm still comfortable with that because the 3 million figure seemed reasonable, still low, but reasonable. But that is still there in place. The other thing is I'd like to hear, before I say, yeah, let's come back to the 5, is what is our comparative analysis on our tax rates with the other municipalities around us?
So again, you need to compare not your rate, your burden.
Your burden, right?
Oh, and I say that, I know that sounds kind of, you might say being cheeky, but the reason that they use that figure as opposed to the rate is because of Kentville has a fire rate on top of their tax rate, so the burden encompasses all tax rate or area rates, tax rates that the municipal unit has on their bill. So that's why we compare burden, not rates, because what is published on a municipal website as their tax rate might not include fire rate, or it might include fire rate. It's not always clear. Then we say the only latest data we have is from 21, 22 in that category. And we were definitely better than Wolfville. And might have been hovering around Kentville. We can get that information though for you.
I'd just like to.
Yep.
It'd be nice to have that.
So
Before
the
we make the
tax,
decision on
Sure.
2 weeks time, because it is always the question.
Yep. we can pull that information.
That might bring me back down to 5, I don't know.
Okay, yep. our, sorry. may I
No,
just say,
yeah, finish this off, because I'm gonna try to. I think we
Our
got everybody. Oh,
FCI is in the green for tax burden. So ours is 3.9, so it's hovering on the yellow. So anything 4 and below is green.
mhm.
Anything 4 to 6 is yellow, and anything over 6 is red as bad. So Lisa prepared for the public meeting that our FCI for tax burden as of last year was 3.9%. And that's adjusting our median income from 2021 census by cost of living every year. So just to give you a sense of where we are.
So we'll in fact be going over the 3.9.
Yes, so this would push us over.
Counselor Wall.
So, my comment is just the last few years as we've done budget planning process and as we've lowered by a cent or 2 cents, I've winced just a little bit every time. So getting us to a 5 cent level, I think would put me at a more comfortable level because I feel that's more appropriate where we need to be, especially in terms of our reserves too. I know I've pushed for our sewer reserves for a number of years and looking at how we can start to build those up again. I think a 5 cent increase would be sort of getting us to that comfortable level that I feel like we should have been at. To me, a good budget is really where we can do our best to stay close to where we are and raising by, you know, a regular 1 or 2 cents at a time. And so our reductions, I feel like they've worked against us for a number of years, and I think this is a good way to start off this new council term with our first budget as a group, to a good level to move up from there.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. I'll take the final comments on this then, and so, in my mind, coming into the budget season, I thought we'd be fortunate if we stayed where we were, or expected we were probably gonna bring back 2 or 3 of those cents that we had lost, this kind of expectation. As we got into this, we saw we had greater difficulty than what I expected with this as a typical year. It's not, and we've got some major issues. I was quite concerned we would have challenges getting to 5. I was really hopeful that we might only get to 4, but I'm pleasantly pleased that council is sitting and we've had this kind of discussion on the fact that we're not scrimping. We put staff through a lot to scrape her down. But I think that I'm pleased that we've given ourselves a little bit of breathing room, especially around the operating reserve that we needed to do, because that is so easy. And has been done many times over the years to say, we'll do that next year. Let's just leave the operating reserve as it is, and next year will be better. So we'll put, instead of doing, you know, the 75, we'll put 25 in, and next year we'll put an extra 50. Well, next year it gets harder and harder all the time to do that. So I'm really pleased where we are. But it really shows that we do need to be doing more to boost our tax base. We need to be looking at more developments. We need to get up there to have greater, you know, the first lesson right off the bat was when we saw that we had $108,000 in extra taxable revenue, and boom, the automatic expenses we had to take off that were 111. So before we started the year, we're down. Like, that's not a good direction to be starting the year. So, you know, we've got to boost that tax rate. We've got to be doing some more around that. So just a lesson for us as we go forward. So we'll leave it now with Lisa and Jennifer. Thank you very much for this, and kind of was very helpful to kind of provide some direction as to how we got to where we are, and we'll look for some final work, and we'll see it in 2 weeks' time, and we'll take any miracle you can find to make some additions to either the operating reserve, or if we decide we want to do something with tax rate at the next meeting, and that's when we'll make our decision from there. So, alrighty, thank you very much for everyone. This is,
Thank you.
Yes. So we do have some correspondence and we do have the mayor's report and some in camera. In camera is, there's a couple of items there, so I'm gonna suggest we take a short break and then we'll come back and do those, last few items. Okay?
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, okay, all right. Thank you. So we're on correspondence and, one of the things that I've noticed and talked to Jennifer today, I get a lot of correspondence stuff. And it's like, okay, dude, we should put this on the agenda, we should put this on the agenda, and it's like, yeah, you know what, I don't know, we need to put that on the agenda, so. We've changed our focus that we wanted to do a little bit in the way we're gonna deal with correspondence. So you're all gonna get it. So we didn't want you not to think you're not, it's just we're gonna get it in different ways. So, for action, we're gonna put it on the council agenda and we'll deal with any of those that may be a request or maybe an action. For those things that are kind of more for information, like some of the ones we have tonight, we're gonna send it to Kristen. And she's gonna send it to you every week. And that way you'll get it a little more often, but you'll be getting stuff that we don't, as a group, need to put on the agenda item. On the
Actually
agenda.
had a better idea.
Well,
Similar.
on your SharePoint, there will be tomorrow, not today, a correspondence folder. And every week, when I get them from Mayor Tenacity, I will just dump them and I'll send an email to let you know correspondence has been updated type of thing, so. There's where it'll be, it won't come as an attachment in your email, just, I will put the link in the email to your SharePoint, because I think that works well for most everybody as opposed to trying to find it on your SharePoint.
I just have one concern about that.
Yeah.
Are we gonna be putting a folder by date as the one we did, or is
Yes.
it all just getting dumped in? the
No,
big folder?
no, I'll put it, good point. No, it'll be by the dates
Okay.
that it's received.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Yeah. And they'll probably just be like one, scanned copy of all the correspondences, I think that's, or, well, depends on how I get them.
Yeah.
And if there's something that has a more sensitive time date for something, then you might get that sooner. You know, like it might not come on that typical Friday, we've loaded a bunch of correspondence into the SharePoint. It might be something that we get right out to you, so. So we're just trying to stream that a little bit better, so.
Sounds like fantastic idea. My only comment is that sometimes I always recall receiving items that didn't need to be shared. And,
Well,
but were things like, I don't need to know that you got a subscription to a magazine type of thing.
so Ab, I should have clarified that. We already do that. We already screen out stuff that should go to staff or that are garbage. Trust me, I hit a lot of delete buttons. So this is stuff that I only think that at some point council should know about or should ask, but yes, so thank you for telling me that. Because yes, there's some, yeah. I get stuff in French.
Do you scroll the bottom?
Je
up?
besoin
It's
pratiquement
usually-
français.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I
Get the Google Translate out, get some AI filters on there.
No.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have a few of those items tonight for correspondence, so this is the ongoing dealings from NSFM, the first one there. They have been doing a great job monitoring the legislature and identifying issues they think are of municipal concern. To the point where they called a special meeting 2 weeks ago for mayors and CAOs just to sit in on a phone call about all the ones that they're having concerns about and how they're staying on top of them. So, so this is a thank you for being there and listening, and they are still bringing them forward. I thought from the very first letter that they were sending, though, they were gonna have something more specific for municipalities to kind of respond to, and I think perhaps because there's so many, they haven't really been able to do that. One municipality has taken it upon themselves to send a letter off to the government just to say they're supporting all the actions that NSFM is doing on our behalf to do that. But and we haven't seen anything that they're suggesting a particular action on at this point for us to do, but this is kind of keeping us up to date that they're keeping on top of those. This one as well would have been one that this is from a group who wants the premier not to repeal any uranium exploration, mining prohibitions and those kinds of things. So and again, you guys can read these. This is the next one from Minister O'Rourke around the windmill turbine setbacks. And in no particular issue for us at this point. Maybe it'll be more specific to area, but we are, yeah. But when it comes there, I mean, we're not looking. Well, we'll come up with areas we do more. We looked at a wind turbine at the fire hall one time. And yeah, the setback was, we needed to do here was crazy. I don't know what this is much more reduced, if it would have been or not, but it's it might have more specific, and we have a specific location for one. They wanted to reduce it. And the other one is, Council Quackenec may want to speak to this because I think she's on this. Remember, we had Greg Hubbard come and present, wanted to know if we would be aware of this and be a supporter, which meant putting our name on the poster. So this is the poster that has now been sent out, and information for you if you do want to attend on Saturday, April 5th at 2:30. Councilor
So I will
Quackenec,
speak
you want
to
to?
it. Yeah, I will quickly speak to it. So this really is an initiative brought forward largely by Greg, but he then tapped into a group of people that I've been involved in, particularly the Valley Food Policy, the Valley Food Council, that has seen basic income guarantee as one of the ways of helping to alleviate food insecurity. And so we've been working on sort of just supporting this. And I know last council did pass a motion supporting the concept, I believe. I mean, I'm not sure what the motion exactly was. So this is an opportunity here in Berwick to really participate in a discussion about it, have questions answered, sort of understand what it is and what it isn't, what it would mean, etc. And that's like all we're doing right now is trying to help people understand. It is a concept that has been well supported by very brilliant people in government over many years from all parties, but has been tried in various places, and every trial has proven that it can work, but has never gone beyond the trial phase. So I encourage you to come, because I think it will be eye-opening in some ways if you've never really looked into the concept. So, thank you.
Thank you. And former councilor's last term, I think we did have a presentation on this by somebody. Yeah.
I think it was Becca LaPierre Green and Roger Tatlock that came in and presented to you. And they will be at this meeting. They will be at this meeting, yes.
Okay. Okay. There was two other pieces that came, and I said, you know what, Sunday morning, I'm not sending those to Krista to add to the package. That's what it struck me, that we get a whole lot of this stuff. One's about an invitation to the Apple Blossom opening, and there's another one that we probably will get you sooner rather than later, because there's some workshops coming up from senior safety that you might want to know about to present. And I think they're coming up at the end of this week or something. So we'll get that one down to you as well.
Yeah.
Okay, mayor's report. Any questions on that? Okay, in camera, so let's have a motion to go, and my apologies that I did not mention what the in-camera items were. I should have told you that we had an upcoming discussion, perhaps contract or agreement related around sewer. And the other item is for information regarding the recreation facility, Councilor James stuff, so. Can we have a motion to go in camera? Thank you, Councilor Jameson, and seconded by Councilor Goddard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried. Now in camera, and we are going to do the